My assessment number is 1RX895, and my chosen tradition is British pantomime. So what exactly is a British pantomime? Well, a British pantomime is a British tradition that is done around Christmas time, where kids and their family will go to see a piece of theater performed. It's a very comedic piece of theater, and it almost always is telling a famous fairy tale of some sort. And this story is told through stock characters like the dame, the principal boy, the villain, and there's a lot of audience interaction, and it's really just so fun for the entire audience. They always enjoy it. There are certain bits that go out through every pantomime, and anyone who goes to a pantomime knows what they're getting into, but there's no way. I did a lot of research on it, but one of the best ways of learning what a pantomime was just watching what a pantomime was. For example, I watched Newport Pantomime Society production of Cinderella, so I got to see firsthand a lot of the stock characters you see. Like I got to see the dame, I got to see the servant who's sometimes there, and that was a really good thing. So basically that's overall what a British pantomime is. And sometimes there's an aspect of musical numbers that often happens. The dame will get a little song. Next, how did we get to pantomime? Well, pantomime has roots in commedia dell'arte. According to Emily McLean, who has a background in early modern theater, commedia dell'arte introduced many of the ideas that are seen in pantomime today, like the stock character trope, and then the gags and ongoing jokes that are seen throughout pantomimes. Commedia dell'arte introduced the idea of having a stock character and having these jokes that you're expected to see. And then on top of that, to go into more detail, Professor Jane Moody talks about the links between certain stock characters in commedia dell'arte and in modern day British pantomime. For example, the Vecchi, who are the villain of commedia dell'arte, they have evolved into the modern day pantomime villain, who is expected to be disliked by the audience, but is still goofy and kind of has a bit of a move to them that's just not super nervous, not super scary, but it is there. And then there's the Innamorati, who are the young lovers in commedia dell'arte. And in British pantomime, there's the principal boy, who is played by a girl, and then there's the love interest, and that is also played by a girl. And almost all pantomimes involve a love story of them coming together, and that is showed by the Innamorati in commedia dell'arte. And then there's the Zanny, and the Zanny is the servant character. And the Zanny has a huge impact on modern day British pantomime. It influences characters like the dame, who is super goofy and has this goofy attitude, just like the Zanny did, and then especially the servant character, which can be seen in some British pantomimes. For example, Buttons in Cinderella is probably the most famous example, and that is an example of a very goofy servant like in commedia dell'arte. Next slide. So what is the beginnings of pantomime? How did we really get here? Well, we can't talk about the beginning of pantomime without talking about John Rich, who, according to Professor Jane Moody, combined ideas of a harlequin, a stock character in commedia dell'arte, and the Columbine in the commedia servants, and put them all into one character. And this can be really seen as the first example of modern day British pantomime, where people came in just to see the comedic aspects of this. And then there's also Joseph Grimaldi, who, according to Ed Simons, the editor-at-large for the Magnella Review of Books, Joseph Grimaldi is the first example of a modern clown, and many of the clown aspects can be seen in modern British pantomime, with the heavy makeup, the absurdity, the slapstick jokes, and all of that. Next slide. So how did we get to the dame? Well, according to Helen Pedden, British Library curator, Dan Leno is probably the most famous example. He was a famous Victorian dame star, and the role of Mother Goose, which is one of the most famous roles of all time in British pantomime for a dame, this was originally written for Dan Leno, and he really popularized the dame and how a dame should be. Next. So what is a pantodame? Well, pantodame has certain aspects that are super important, like she will always interact with the audience, she's very confident, and she knows she's a guy and kind of plays with that in jokes, and she's very comedic. And the best way I learned to learn about these was by watching interviews with dames like Sam Rabone, Quinn Patrick, and Danny Mills, and they really helped me see what a dame should be. So how did I prepare for the role of being the dame? Well, I watched a lot of interviews with people who are famous and successful dames. For example, one was James Doherty. He did a video called 5 Steps to Becoming a Dame. And in that, he's in his full dame outfit, and he's with one of his friends. He gets them to dress like a dame. It's quite comedic, but it really does help go through the steps of, hey, this is what a dame needs, this is what is expected of being a dame. So it really talked about the outfit, which I'm not doing today, but that really helped me get the character in my head. But then the movements, the confidence, how the dame would walk, and then what really got me was the voice. It talked a lot about the voice and how you had to be strong and confident, but everything was said a little bit comedic. So you're kind of a foolish character, but you're not, you know what you're doing. You're not like scared. So it's a very confident character. And then there's probably my favorite video for the interviews was Panto Day's The Pantomime Dame. And this was a video made for a Pantomime Day, and it's interviewing a bunch of famous dames, and I got a lot of really good quotes on, hey, this is how you do it. For example, Sam Rabone, he is a famous pantomime dame, and he said to have a strong, confident voice, so I kept that in note when I was preparing. And then Lee Redwood, this was probably my favorite quote about the voice. He said he used to have a falsetto voice when he did it, and so one day someone told him that it sounds weird and stop doing that, and he said he was really grateful for that person because you're not supposed to have a falsetto voice. So I learned, hey, don't have a falsetto voice, just sound confident and strong. So after that, I watched a lot of actual performances of dames. So for example, I watched, I'd say the most helpful for me was Lee Redwood. I watched a video, it was like 15 minutes long, and it was just a bunch of compilations of his most famous dame roles and just him performing. And I thought it was really useful. I got to see the variety of a dame because I got to see the mother character, I got to see just like the older person, and then I got to see a villain, which was super fun. But I also got to see the dancing, the singing, and a lot of audience interaction. Audience interaction, super useful. So that really helped me in my mind go, okay, this is the character, this is the dame, this is what I need to be. And then on top of that, another video that I really liked was Robert Pierce. And this really stood up to me because this was the first video I saw of a pantomime dame when I was first started researching. And this was during my research phase, and I learned a lot about it. That I kept looking back at that video when I'm doing this part because it was a really good, high quality video of a short skit where Robert Pierce is talking to the audience as the dame, having a goofy fun time, interacting with the audience, throwing candy, and it really helped me go, okay, so the dame is comedic, but confident, and it really helped me form this idea of a dame in my mind. Next slide. Oh, can you go back one? So how did I prepare for a dame? Well, I stood in front of the mirror in my mother's bathroom, and I just went on and I did the scene that I picked a bunch of times, many times, and I saw, this is what I'm doing, this is what I should be doing. And technically my convention is the voice, but I think it's almost impossible to do the voice without having the hands and the movements and the actions as well. So, for example, I often would stand in front of the mirror like this, and I was like, that's a very masculine way to stand. It seems weird to be doing this feminine scene as this masculine character who's standing like this. So I said, okay, I'll put my hands like this, because I also at the same time, I'd watch a video which is a Mother Goose production, which the scene is from Mother Goose, and it's about Mother Goose. And I saw how she stood, and she stood like this, very proper, and that taught me, okay, this is how I should probably stand too. So I started practicing like this, started saying my lines, and it was really useful. And then in my opinion, the most useful thing for sure was the voice recording. That was so useful. I would just record myself, say the lines, and then I would stop recording, listen back, and then say lines with it. And then I kept doing that until I got, okay, this is what I like, this is how I should sound. And that was definitely, in my opinion, the most useful part. So now I will be performing the actual thing, and this is from Mother Goose by Julie Petrucci and Chris Shin. And this is just a scene, and I shall start now. Oh, I say, what a lovely surprise. A birthday party, just for me. And all of you have showed up as well. Well, what could be nicer than a party with a load of people I don't know? Well, as you're all here, I may as well introduce myself. My name is Gertrude Goose. My friends usually just call me Gert. Boy, because the next bit's rude. What's the matter? That one always kills at parties. This is the first time it's failed me. Are you guys, is this your first time as an audience? Well, I'll soon get you warmed up. In fact, you can help me with this plant here. my friend asked me to water it, and I don't want to forget, and I'm afraid it'll die. So, every time you see me, can you remind me to water it? Excellent. I'll stand here, and when I come on, shout, "What are the plans?" Let's have a go, shall we? And that is the scene. Thank you.
So, how has this convention helped me as a performer? Well, this convention was extremely useful because it was very nerve-wracking first going into it, because this character, the Dame, is so outlandish, so confident, and she's got such a character to her, and it's a very feminine character, and I've definitely never played a character like that, so it was extremely nerve-wracking to try and do this new character, and I almost chose not to do it with this convention because of how nerve-wracking that was for me. But I decided that I wanted to learn something new and I wanted to try something new. So I did this new convention, and it was extremely useful to me. I learned so much about confidence and the use of a good confident voice and the mannerisms that I use, and this is so useful for all of my acting. For example, last year we did Mamma Mia, and I was Harry Bright, and he's an extremely important character. And being the Dame helped me learn about the importance of a silly character like the Dame, who is also really important to the plot and the story. And it really helped me deliver lines in a way that was super important and impactful, but also really comedic and funny. I watched so many performances of Dames that I really got to see how a Dame works, and I got to see how to use certain comedic aspects to help my things get better. So, for example, there's many lines I had as Harry Bright that I felt like, looking back on with my knowledge of the Dame, I kind of threw away, and I should have put them out in a more comedic way. So this playing of the Dame has really helped me learn about those lines and how to do comedic roles better, but also take them seriously too. And then another thing I love to do is improv. I love doing improvisation, and this panto experience has really helped me make this outlandish character that I never thought I could do. So playing this character has helped me be more confident in my improv. I can do more characters that I never explored before and act in ways that I have never done before. And it's really cool to act in front of these audiences as a character that would have been way too scary for me to act as before, because I'm confident and I've seen these wonderful performers do this acting as the Dame, and it's amazing. It's oftentimes some of the best parts of the pantomime is the Dames and the interaction with the audience. I use that in my improv all the time now because I loved how they interact with the audience, and it really made the audience feel so special. So I really like that aspect, and that has really affected me as a performer in all of my future performances. So how is this theater impactful for the whole world? Well, this theater is rooted in many traditions. For example, commedia dell'arte, and like we talked about earlier, like the clown. But I want to focus in on commedia dell'arte because I thought it was super interesting when I was researching that commedia dell'arte came earlier, and British pantomime takes many aspects from commedia dell'arte, like the stock characters and some of the extreme movements. So it was really interesting to learn about that. But then on top of that, I also got to see the differences of these characters. It was really intriguing to say, okay, so with British pantomime, they can go into like these musical numbers and super wacky and interact with the audience. And that's something you'll never see in a commedia dell'arte play. You won't see a popular musical pop song in a commedia dell'arte play. But you get to see these in British pantomime. So I get to see how they branched off and become their own separate things. And I think that's really interesting and really impactful to learn how two very different works can originate from some of the same things and really be rooted in each other. That was super interesting. And then next, British panto is an extremely British tradition. It's an important part of British childhoods. Children from all across England, they go to see pantos around Christmas time. That's their tradition with their family. Their grandparents take them to pantos, their parents take them to pantos. They see it every year for Christmas, and it's super important. It's part of their childhood, and it's something that no other child in the world can really claim. They don't really perform pantos across the world. It's mainly in England, so it's a tradition that they get to hold and keep, and I think that's extremely interesting and extremely important to have these traditions that you keep in the world, just like between a community. And then here's the list of resources I used throughout the video. Thank you.